Picture that you've already hit your goals. Not only have you hit them, but you're consistently doing them. You're doing them in a way that it's never going to go away, right? You feel confident, right? You're there and you're there to stay, right? Nobody can take it. What version of you do you see then? Yeah, I think that sometimes it's just awareness, right? Just because you're aware of it, right? Just because you're aware of it, which I think is really powerful, right? Really, really powerful. I think even an easy way to think about it is like just serving future you, right? Because we've all been in situations where you just like don't do something that you're supposed to, right? And then you get into the future and you look back and you're like, damn, past me, past Caden really fucked that up, and I wish he wouldn't have done that, right? And for some of us, it's like maybe when we're trying to get jacked and ripped again, right? We're trying to lose weight, and you fold that one night and you eat, you don't even eat just two cookies. You eat like a whole row of Oreos, right? Maybe I'm the only one that does that sometimes. Right. Once I'm going, baby, I don't stop. I'm committed, right? And then you wake up in the morning and it's like you feel like crap, right? And it's like, dang, I shouldn't have done that. And so we've all done that. And I think just being aware of it is step one, right? Just being aware, right? But this exercise is a hell of a lot more than just being aware, which I think is the fun part of it, because all of those areas in our life matter, right? And you don't necessarily. My recommendation through some of this stuff is to, like we talked about last time, do it in more of like a meditative way, right? Where you try to just picture that version of you, right? Try to just picture that version of yourself rather than trying to control it so much, right? And whatever you see, an easy way to think about it is picture that you've already hit your goals, right? And you've hit your goals. Not only have you hit them, but you're consistently doing them, right? And you're doing them in a way that it's never going to go away, right? You feel confident, right? You're there and you're there to stay, right? Nobody can take it. What version of you do you see then? How does that version of you, like you're already talking about, how do they feel? How do they dress? How do they smell? Right? What is their hygiene like? Right? How do they take care of themselves? What do their habits look like? Right? And that's why we look at, right, what's the perfect day look like in that setting? What's the perfect week look like in that setting? Right? What's the perfect year look like in that exact setting? Right? Because if you can start to feel that, you can start to see it. The more you can see it and the more you can feel it, the easier it's going to be to attain. Right? And the reason it's going to be easier to attain, and this is like one of the most important things that, this is the whole reason why vision boards work, is because we all know we have our conscious and our unconscious, right? That's something we all agree upon, right? I understand they're the same brain, but like you do have kind of an unconscious behind the scenes, right? And that unconscious is communicating. It doesn't know language, right? Think of the unconscious it's almost like an animal, right? The mammalian brain, right? And so just like an animal, like animals don't have language, right? They have feeling, right? And they communicate mainly through tone, right? But and emotion, right? Imagery, but not words, right? And so if I think about it that way, the reason vision boards work so well, if they're done correctly, and it's actually something that is attainable, is whatever your brain sees a lot, right? Whatever you see a lot, you're communicating to your subconscious, oh, this is important, right? Like the mammalian brain within, you're communicating to it always, and you're showing it what's important to you, right? It's like if you guys we've all done this, right? Where you get a new car and it feels really unique, and then all of a sudden that's the only kind of vehicle that you see on the road, and there's a lot of them, right? And it's because now your subconscious is seeing that every day, and basically it's kind of thinking, right? Like, yeah, the reticular activating system, exactly, right? And it's basically communicating to it like, oh, this is important to this human, right? My human is telling me this is important. I should look for this, right? And so the more I can see what I want to become, and the more I can feel that, the more my subconscious is just going to make that happen, right? Without me even knowing, right? Little micro things happening throughout my day where it will start to happen and it'll start to feel natural. And then you get to places and you think, damn, I don't know how this happened, right? And it happened because you programmed your subconscious to show that was important. The same thing with the conversation the other day about collapse and posturing, right? That can happen even just in different settings, right? Anybody here ever driven through like a neighborhood that you strive to live in one day, right? Where all the houses are beautiful, right? For some of us, they might be big houses. For some of us, they might have big lots, or it's going to be different for all of us, right? Might have like a big, beautiful view, right? But you drive through that neighborhood, and a lot of times when you drive through that neighborhood, you're driving through it in a way where it's like, oh, this isn't normal, right? Like I want to get there one day, right? But it's abnormal from your everyday, right? And who here has driven through that neighborhood? If you think back to that time, and just the feeling inside of you was actually a feeling of collapse, right? Even though somebody wasn't there, you're looking around, and even though you're motivated, you're thinking, I don't like, it's going to be a long time before I get there. Or maybe I'll get there one day, right? Hopefully I can get there one day versus driving through the neighborhood that's like that, where you strive to be. And it might not even be a neighborhood. It might be just a piece of land, right? And driving through that and feeling like it's normal, right? This is where I'm supposed to be. You're comfortable there, right? It's a little bit of a different feeling, right? And so that's the power of what we will eventually do with this, which it will turn into a vision board, right? That's the power of like being able to see it because you're communicating that subconscious. This is normal, right? This is important to me. And then little things happen throughout your life to move you closer to that. Matt talks about that sometimes, actually. I haven't heard him talk about it in a while. Um, but when Matt was like going through his journey, he tells a story about how him and Sammy, his wife, had mapped out their perfect day. And like they went and got a hotel in the city that they wanted to live in, rented the cars they wanted to. I've never gone that far with it, right? But same thing, right? The more real you can make it, the easier it is to get there, right? And so today, I actually just wanted to focus on that again. And the reason I wanted to focus on that again is because things like this are a little bit harder than what we make them out to be sometimes, right? And my guess is that for most of us, this is going to take a week or two to complete, right? Like a lot of you said, you haven't put pen to paper yet. You've just been thinking about it, right? And so we'll talk about this for a little bit, and then I'll end it here. And just towards the end of the session, there's one other thing that I will go over. But as we look at this here, who had questions as they were trying to do it? Who maybe hit a roadblock that we could help you through? Nobody. So let's look at this again then. Nobody hit a roadblock, but some of us still need to do it, right? And I put the link in the chat for any of you who don't have this. And before you do this, I would recommend, if there's any of you that this is your first session on here and you haven't, I'm guessing that there might be one or two, make sure you watch the first two sessions because they're building up to this, right? And so my recommendation would be to do the limiting beliefs right before this. So even if you've already done the limiting beliefs exercise, just go through it once again. You don't necessarily have to fully do it, but even if you just review your answers, I'd recommend doing that before you do this, right? And the reason why is because that gets you into the right headspace, right? And then you're focusing on those beliefs because the beliefs are going to be a big part of this, right? Your beliefs and your world beliefs are going to drive your personal beliefs, and those personal beliefs are going to drive your thoughts, and that's going to drive your actions. right? And so it's a trickle down effect. World beliefs, personal beliefs, thoughts, actions, right? And so it all does come down to beliefs, right? Which is why we started with limiting beliefs. And so as we look at this, remember, you're designing it, right? You're designing it. There's no perfect, and the first run through doesn't have to be the one that you go with forever, right? For some of us, we might have a hard time, like Lucio, right? You might have a hard time seeing 10 years into the future, right? You're what, 18, 19 years old? Dude, you don't have to see to the 20 years into the future right now, right? Just do, if you can only see 6 months into the future, see 6 months into the future, see a year into the future, right? But again, the way I like to think about this is when you're designing yourself, think about the version of yourself that you are when you've hit your goals, right? And you haven't only hit them, but you've been maintaining them, right? And you feel confident about them that nobody can take them from you. You trust in you, right? And you're there. You live in the house you want to live in. You're wearing the clothes that you want to wear. You're eating the food that you want to eat, right? Life is exactly how you want it. That's what we're designing here, right? And as we know, it all starts with our environment, right? And so these are just some prompts, right? But it doesn't have to be exactly this way, right? These are just some prompts. The environment. What house do I live in, right? What vehicle am I driving, right? What is my work? Am I working from home? What does that workspace look like, right? How am I using my phone, right? Our phone, these things are our biggest asset and also sometimes our biggest distraction, our biggest liability, right? And the reason that is because for a lot of us, if we use this thing incorrectly, this little brick that we all carry around everywhere, if you use it incorrectly, what will end up happening is somebody else will design your life. Somebody else will shape your beliefs. Somebody else will control that, right? It's exactly a two-edged sword. It can be your biggest tool, but it can also be the biggest slippery slope in your life, right? And I think that all of us are probably on the same page. We probably don't have to talk about the social media algorithm and how that works, right? But anything that is free to use, you are the product, right? We are the product, right? How do they make money? They make money from advertising space. Advertising space means that they're going to show us whatever converts us, right? They want to keep us on the platform as long as possible, and they want us to buy things because that's how they make money, right? And it's not, I don't think it's done out of malicious intent. I'm not saying the people that own it are malicious, right? But the algorithm is going to do what the algorithm does, right? And so it's going to show you whatever content keeps you on there the most. It's going to show you the things that are, doing micro things to help persuade you, right? One of those things is called fractionation, right? And if you guys pay attention when you're scrolling over Thanksgiving, right? Because I'll bet you 99% of us have some moment where we do a little bit of scrolling over the next couple days. Next time you see an ad, go back through the last 5 to 10 reels or shorts that it showed you. Look at them, right? And I'll bet you what you see is you'll see something that is a little bit more on the positive side. And for all of us, that's different, right? For some of you, it's probably going to be puppies and kitties, right? And for some of you, that might be like, I don't know, sports, right? It's going to show you some stuff that's more on the positive side, and then it'll show you some more negative things. And then it'll show you positive and it'll show you negative. There'll be a pattern. It'll go in a pattern, right? One or two of each, and then you'll see an ad, right? And the reason that works is called fractionation. You're taking somebody really high and then really low, really high and then really low, right? And then that creates suggestibility, creates a little more predictability out of humans. Then here's ad for thing that you want, right? And so think about that too. How am I using my phone? What does that look like, right? And I think this is maybe the most important thing of every section. Who is my example in this section of my life? Who is the mentor? Who has what I want? Right? And who is acting in a way that I want to act? Right? And for all of us, this might be different. This might be somebody that you don't know that you just see on social media. That's okay. It doesn't really matter. Right? Because either way, they're a character in your head for this situation. Right? It doesn't matter. They don't even have to know. You'll never tell them. Right? For some of us, it might be people in our family. Right? For some, like it's going to be, it could be anybody. And for some of us, it might be one or two people for every single one of these. Right? But the reason this is important is because it allows us to step outside and be able to evaluate, right? From like a third party perspective, right? And what ends up happening is, guess what? We're rewiring our brain to act more like that future version that we want to be. And then guess what happens with your goals? They just happen, baby. Right? They just happen. And so I think this is a really, really important one, right? As you guys think about it, and you're designing that, right? If you don't factor in the time, you're going to fall off. Appearance, right? If you look good, feel good, play good, right? Appearance matters, right? Because I can do all the work I want, but if I think I look like a bum, then I will feel like a bum, right? Now that doesn't mean like if I dress like a what some people would consider a bum, but I don't feel any way about it and I feel good about it, it's not a big deal, right? Hormozy is a great example of that, right? A lot of people would say Hormozy dresses like a bum, right? I think it's a little extreme, but I get the point. He's always in shorts and a tank top, always, right? But for him, that doesn't matter, right? And so it's more about you, right? How do you feel about your appearance, right? When you're at that place and you have all the choices in the world, how are you dressing? How are you moving? What does your posture look like? How do you carry yourself? And this couldn't be more important for sales reps. Social. How do I talk to people? How is my energy when I'm around people and I'm communicating with people? Right? If we're all commission only salespeople, this one is how we make the money, and then we got to manage the money. Right? Now, another really, really important section here is this one. Right? This is just like a cheat code to make it easier to become that person, separating it into two identities. Right? It's just a cheat code to make it easier and make it happen a little bit quicker because then we can separate things. And the reason this works so well is because our brain is geared to run on comparison. Right. And so it creates a really easy comparison for the brain to make this stuff a lot easier. Right. And I think these are all, we already talked about these. They're pretty self-explanatory. Now, some helpful tints or helpful tips and tricks. If you guys are struggling with this and struggling to get into the mindset where you can picture this, right? For me, I have a really good imagination. I'm very visual, as most of you already know, right? And so stuff like this, I close my eyes, I just visualize, all right? But I've practiced visualizing quite a bit. If you struggle with it, a good little thing that you can do is just rearrange the furniture around, your house, your room, wherever you may be, your workspace, right? That just gears your brain for change, right? Even something subtle, like just moving the furniture around, puts yourself in that headspace where you're coming out of the patterns, right? It makes it a little bit easier to start doing some of these visualizations. And also meditating, right? Like if you guys just look up YouTube, a couple meditations, meditate for a few days before you actually try it. It'll be a hell of a lot easier after a few days of consistent meditation, right? And what all of this is designed to do, obviously we're focusing on confidence, but as we talked about a couple sessions ago, and we defined confidence, right, as that composure and that authority, right, over ourselves, right? We had the collapse, the posture, then in the middle, right, that composure and authority, right? And so the confidence is going to be one piece of that, right? And as we start to build that, what you guys will see is that part of that confidence, a big piece of it is going to come down to the level of discipline that you have, right? Because we can do all of these things, but if we're not disciplined day in and day out to slowly make some of these changes, it's never going to happen, right? And so the easiest way to be more confident is just to have an incredible amount of discipline, right? They are directly linked and they are directly intertwined, right? If I'm not doing the things that I told myself I was going to do, I probably will not be very confident because I'm communicating to my subconscious that I'm not the authority. I'll just do whatever I feel like, right? And then it's very difficult to be confident and have authority over myself, which means it's very hard to have authority on my sales calls, right? The next thing that it will come down to, and we'll factor in big time here, is gratitude and enjoyment, right? We talk a lot about authority on our sales calls, right? If we want to have authority, we need to be confident. We need to be disciplined. We need to be grateful. And we need to have some enjoyment, right? It's very difficult to get that natural authority where people are just gravitating towards you if you're a cranky fucking asshole, right? Because people don't gravitate towards that. They run away from that, right? Even if you're confident and disciplined, right? If you're a douchebag, the people don't like douchebags, right? And so there is a level of gratitude and just enjoyment, right? And I think that's really important. And enjoyment is learning. I think the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship is that you have to learn to enjoy the struggle, enjoy the chaos, enjoy the journey, right? Which is rather difficult in the beginning, at least it was for me, right? But the more you go through it, right? If you're grateful for it and you practice that, all of a sudden you start to enjoy it. And life starts to feel a little boring without it, right? You start to crave it. And that's when we hear people on the phones that seem to just have that natural authority, right? People just listen, right? And their sales calls seem to go smooth even though they suck at the script, right? Or maybe they're on some totally, like we hear people from a different team or whatever. Most of us in sales have probably heard somebody else that is out earning us, and we're thinking, how the hell is that happening? I'm better than that person, right? Well, do they have the, are they better at being disciplined? Are they more grateful? Do they enjoy it a little bit more, right? Are they more confident, right? If you pair all those things together and then you put just a little bit of leadership qualities in there, difficult to not have success in any area of life, right? But we have to consciously build those things, right? And so the first piece that we're working on as we go through this is the confidence, right? And the confidence we've broken down into those other 5 categories. But as we're going through this, right, the end goal is that as we come out of this and we're building that confidence, is that then we start to shape that into a way that we feel more naturally disciplined and we're being more disciplined. And that leads to us feeling a little bit more grateful, having a little bit more enjoyment, and we're all are just the best version of ourselves that we could be. Right. And so I wanted to slow things down this week since it is Thanksgiving and we have a little bit longer break. Everybody make sure to actually complete the high performance character exercise. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Grateful for all of you guys.